Good afternoon. This is going to be a really awesome program. I want everybody to know that ahead of time. I'm Jackie Santistaban, was retired Navy. Most of my time was Navy Reserve. I have my own business called the Government Sales Advisor, so if you see my name up here. I'd like to introduce you to a few things before talk to a couple things before I start introducing the speakers. They want you to notice that the exit is in the back of the room, and please silence your cell phones if you could. And I don't know where our sponsors are. They told me to thank our sponsors, but...
I'll have that at the end.
Okay. Colonel Wheeler will thank the sponsors at the end. And the badges were all scanned when you came in the room. I'm pretty sure you noticed that. So Sammy will do an attendance record, and they're going to use that for their market research and better be able to do programs around the highest attendance. The presentations for this session will be available next week on the website, and this is going to be recorded, I believe. And so if you have a question, if you could please step over to the microphone so that we're able to hear all the questions. And now I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Ted Wheeler and Lieutenant Colonel James Davis. And they'll tell you a little bit about their background. And like I said, I think it really is going to be a really good program for all of you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Jackie. So again, on the phones, and again, if you have to take a call, because everybody has a day job while you're attending here, just feel free to take your call and then head out the back. Jackie also talked about the PDHs, and for Q&A, we're not going to wait till the end. So we'll do, Jim and I will pretty much do a dialogue with our presentation. We don't mind to be interrupted at all when you have questions, because you will forget about them. If you're like me, you'll forget about them by the time we get to the end. So that's how we'll do that. We always start everything with a safety moment. If you're not familiar, we actually have developed a safety moment app. It's on the Apple Store and Google Play. You can put it on your tablet. You can put it on your cell phone. We use them for like our toolbox Monday mornings when you're out on the field site. They've got a whole bunch of different subjects that you can do. So it's got a kind of a walkthrough on it, but it's a safety app, and we offer it at free. It's free download. So there's our safety moment, and Jackie already gave the exit strategies in case of an emergency. I will tell you, I've been sitting here for about an hour and a half. The train has come through twice, so if you feel the room shaking, I kid you not, the train is immediately behind us and above, so don't be frightened. We'll keep rolling. The purpose. Both Jim and I work for we call ourselves a mid-sized firm. We're about under 1,000 people, 23 offices, primarily Mississippi East. So this is really from a large business perspective. We do a lot with small business, the small business councils in SAME. So that's really our focus on this, is to really give small businesses a large business perspective, really what we're looking for in our teaming partners. We're going to do a summary level primer, what I call, on a bunch of federal systems. We're going to cover 12 federal systems. We're not going to do a deep dive on all of them, but there are a couple things I want to do a deeper dive on, not in detail. So before I get started, raise your hand if you're a small business. Okay, and so the rest are large businesses, so probably 2/3 small, 1/3 large. Federal systems, when I mean federal systems like CPARS and Small Business Reporting System and FedBizOps and that kind of stuff. How many folks consider themselves an expert on federal systems? Any experts in the room? Because I'm going to ask you to leave. So everybody else, any novices that haven't dabbled at all? Okay, so a third, maybe 40% novices. That's good, because this is an entry-level type class. So how many folks in the room knew that a sub can get your name on a CPARS record? Okay, so two, well, I hope you would. And in the back, military or private industry? Okay, so that's 2 out of the entire group. That's pretty good. That actually happened when the CPAR, or when the CPARs, ACAS, and PEEPers, CCAS, ACAS, and CPARs merged about 3 years ago. That function actually came up. But
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So if the sub shows up on the CPARs, they are evaluated as a sub, or they're evaluated as part of the prime?
so we'll cover that on the slide. The sub, because it's proprietary, the prime owns the contract, the prime owns the CPARs. The prime will be evaluated on behalf of the government. What the sub can do is, if they've got a significant amount, they can get their name, their DUNS, and a sentence or 2 of the scope of work that they have done to support that. Now, I won't cut to the chase, but there's a lot of stuff tied into that, and we'll address that a little bit later. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Anybody besides large business, any small businesses ever hear of the electronic small business reporting system, or an individual small business report? Okay, so if you are out trying to find large business teaming partners, and you want to see who are the ones that play well with others, that actually do what they say they're going to do, there's a report that, as a large business, if I have a federal contract every 6 months, I have to report on that. There's a thing called an individual small business report that is actually, it's self-reporting, but it's actually something that is available. Again, it is proprietary to the large business, so you can ask them for that. They may not want to share it with you, then I'd be a little leery, because it might not be very good. If they do, that'll kind of show, that's the proof. As a large business, in the last 3 years, I have had to provide individual small business reports as part of my proposal. You write a small business participation plan, that's great. That just says, sure, I'm going to hire all these small businesses to do all this kind of stuff. Well, just like everything else requires proof with with resumes and projects and stuff, now large businesses are being asked, do you actually meet your goals? And contract specialists will go into this system. If you hold a contract and you're an incumbent, they'll go into the system and see how you're doing. Are you really meeting your goals? So be careful what you put on your proposal. Yeah, I'm meeting all my goals. They go into the system, you're not meeting any of your goals. Whoosh, whoosh, and off. So we'll talk a little bit about that. CPARs, also the Interagency Contract Directory, ICD. Anybody familiar with it? Yes, something new. Okay, it just came out in like April, May timeframe. It basically is a search engine that sits on the Federal Procurement Database System. If anybody has ever used FPDS, it can kind of be a pain to use. It's not real super user-friendly. So actually, the federal government created this search engine on top of it, and it's primarily meant for procurement folks. I need an 8A contractor in this state, or a particular NAICS code or whatever. So we'll introduce the ICD, tell you a little bit about it. We're not going to do too deep of a dive on it, but it is a great tool. Jim's was working on a TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, and you could only use people that are in the TVA footprint. So he had to go in and he had to find out which states those were, which by hub zone, same, all the set-aside categories. So that's our purpose. Federal Targeting 101. I'm a retired Army guy, so I love Sun Tzu. So he was always big about know your enemy, know your environment, and know yourself. I would offer the past 12 years that I've been in private industry, I've translated that from going to go get bad guys and attack enemies to know your client and your ultimate client. As a small business, your client is probably a large business or some teaming partner. The ultimate client would be that federal agency, state agency, whatever. So you want to understand both your client and then who they have a contract with. know the federal systems. This is a class on a primer, so we're not going to go too deep on this. We'll give you enough so that you understand it and that you at least know, do I need a password or can I just search it, kind of stuff. And then really know what you look like. I talked a little bit about a large business perspective. We do a lot of conferences and stuff where we do outreach and such. We're looking for our next small business teaming partner. And that is, it's good to be able to know, because if you come talk to me and give us a business card, I'm going to look you up. I'm going to go into SAM to make sure that you exist, that you don't have any exclusion. I'm going to check your status. If you say I do federal, I'm going to go into the federal procurement database system. I'm going to see if you hold contracts. And if we actually get together, I have due diligence responsibility. I'm going to probably pull a Dun & Bradstreet on you to make sure that you're fiscally sound. I would offer small businesses should be doing the same. When you check out, when you're developing relationships for large businesses, it's important to check out your large business. Okay, so this is the box. This is what we consider really the 12 primary federal systems. And what we're going to do is, Jim and I are just going to tag team on this. He'll do 3, I'll do 3, and we'll go back and forth. Again, I ask you, if you've got a question, please ask it there. This slide deck itself is PDF'd. I've got 2 handouts. Those are PDF files. And just like Jackie said, up on the portal, you'll be able to pull that stuff down. If you would like the PowerPoint presentation, please throw a card right up here. And sometime tomorrow or the next day, I can send you the PowerPoint slide deck, because I would love for you to use this slide deck. It's got the small business conference logos and stuff like that. But use this to go educate some of your other folks and take it back to your SAME posts, because it's a pretty good primer on all this stuff. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jim, and he's going to start off with Sam.
Okay. Quick little background about me. I was a district engineer, and so doing the federal thing and then transitioning to private sector, I'm on both sides of the fence. I've seen and understand both sides. So sometimes we'll try to throw in some vignettes to try and paint the picture, especially if you're from the government side and you've never been on the private side, you don't understand what it's like. So saying things like it's going to be posted on FBO, that's the most useless phrase that you'll ever hear. Okay, we'll cover that. The first system we want to cover was SAM. Everyone knows you have to be registered in SAM in order to get a federal contract. That's simple. There have been some rule changes lately, and you used to be able to register in SAM basically in 24 hours. You can go in, create your stuff, post it. It was really important if you had a joint venture that you wanted to go after a new contract, and you did your joint venture, you knew you could post that, and 24 hours later, you were now established in the federal system and eligible for an award. Okay, that's changed now because people were taking advantage and some sort of fraud in the system. They've now changed that where you have to have a written, notarized document that is submitted, hard copy, to the SAMS folks. It means somebody's got to take this piece of paper, look at it, then go into the system and say that now you're verified. And those registrations are taking 30, 45 days to work through. And so you have to take that in consideration if you're planning to do a joint venture or maybe create a new entity or something like that. The lead time is much longer. And so make sure you take that in consideration and make sure your SAMS record is up to date. They do expire. And so just because you did it once doesn't mean that it's good forever. You have to keep going back. And as you're getting ready to submit on different contracts, double check. And we do the same thing as part of our due diligence. When we're working with small business partners, we have to go back and verify everybody that you're not going to expire prior to that submission for that contract. So just little housekeeping things, but the system has changed, so make sure you're keeping up to speed on that. Which way are we going here?
How long is it initially good for?
Year.
1 year, so every year?
Yes, ma'am. Every year.
Okay. Next system we want to talk about is this SBA Dynamic Small Business Search. And now this is one that you've got to upload. And the government uses this as a market survey tool. And so you talk contracting officers, small business liaisons, you talk to them and they'll say, oh, we did a market survey, and this is one of the tools that they use. It's good that we use it also to go find Ted used the example, we were going after a Tennessee Valley Authority contract, and they require that the subcontractors come from within the footprint of TVA. And so not only are you going within the state, you're going in with different counties within certain states to try to define that area and chase it down. So this provides a geographic search. So there's there's probably, I don't know, 30 different boxes on there that you can search for different categories. And so you can use this tool to help find teaming partners, subcontractors, and some of the cases that we had, like for instance, in each category, hub zone, women-owned, they had different requirements. So this tool can help you drill in down and try to find that list. And then once you have that list, then you can go further and then start vetting them and looking them up individually to try and build your team. So it can be laborious, but when you have a hard requirement like TVA had, you really got to do some digging. It takes some time and effort, but it's a tool that's out there, and the government people, procurement people do use it. So if you don't self-register, then they may just skip right by you. And government contracting folks will reach out to you if you're registered here. If there's a requirement, they may reach out to you using this system. So make sure you're registered there. Quick intel tip. Another thing that we use this for is a lot of times people say, well, I want to go after the next women-owned 8A contract is a good example. And so I'll look at this and I'll find when does the incumbent 8A expire? When does their 8A, they time out? And that tells you, will that company be able to recompete for it or not? If not, because they time out, they can't recompete for it, you now say, okay, it's open. The incumbent is not there anymore, won't be able to recompete. Then we reach out to the 8A and say, they have the historical knowledge of that contract, they've been performing it. You can do some due diligence, find out they're doing well on the contract. Are they interested in recompeting with another entity? Things like that. So little tidbits of stuff that you can glean from this that kind of we do on a normal basis. On the vendor information pages for the VA, this really is reference to the veteran service disabled. For us, more and more requirements. As you know, the VA is the only one that requires CVE certification, but we basically have adopted it across the board. And so if you're a veteran, service disabled veteran business, we're going to go check you out here first. If you're not there, we don't accept the self-certification. Okay, the Corps and others do, but we don't. So when it comes to the short list, if you're a veteran, service disabled, make sure you're registered in there and get your CVE certification, and your stock and your visibility is much higher because you're going to make the short list. So we'll reach out to you, and we search for a lot of our SDV SOBs here also. Is there anyone from the VA in the office, in here? Because I know the CVE process is going to change, and I know it's working its way through. And so if we had anyone from the VA that could shed any light on what that new process is going to look like, that'd be great. But I don't see anyone. Okay, there's just a little bit about those three systems. I'll turn back to Ted.
So as far as, know what you look like in the system, that's SAM, that's the SBA database, as well as the vet. So those are the three systems that we put up front, because really, when you want to look at yourself and you want to see, when you hand somebody a business card and that name goes in there, that's the name that we take back and look up. We basically do our due diligence. So where we go to these conferences and we have a couple cards and we're like, hey, when we come to conferences, we're specifically looking for what don't I meet as far as my small business goals on a particular contract. It's not just we want to talk to everybody. A lot of times large businesses, if they're hurting on, everybody's always hurting on hub zone, but there's a bunch, depending on which contracts, it can vary. Sometimes it's woman-owned small businesses. That's your in. And if you know somebody, so as far as knowing yourself. So ICD, Interagency Contract Directory. On the bottom, the URL is there. This essentially, like I said, I'll do this. It's a search tool. it really just sits on top of the federal procurement database system. So if you drill down to a certain level, it's going to take you right back to the federal procurement database system. However, most of the search engines on top, it's based on easy search, so it's Google-like. You can put parentheses, you can use like those Boolean searches and stuff like that. All that stuff works on that. It doesn't work in FPDS like that. Also, all these IDVs or indefinite delivery vehicles, it grabs the bundle, the FSF, the GWACs, all the acronyms underneath there, and it really focuses on that. So it is, again, it was put together to help interagency sharing better of what contracts are out there. FPDS can be kind of cumbersome. The searches don't always give you, they'll give you laundry list. It's hard to, sometimes it's categorized by the IDV, sometimes it's not, depends how it was inputted. We have just started, again, that kicked off like in May. I think they opened it up to be able to start using it. We've not done a whole bunch on it, but it is a search engine that we just want to let folks know about. So take this slide deck and take it back and test it out. There's a basic search, very Google-like. Then there's an advanced search, and this goes into what Jim was talking about. I can go in there and search for 8As. It allows you to drill down, very, very simple tic-tac. If I hit DLA and I want to go find AE services, you can search by NAICS code, you can search by product or service code, or by even vehicle type. So again, just the front end on that. Then good old FPDS. I'm going to skip through a bunch of these slides, but if you haven't used the Federal Procurement Database System, the next couple slides basically is a training class I gave for an hour one time on the Federal Procurement Database System. I see Dennis in the back there. There's some folks that are really, really smart on this that have been out on the circuit. FPDS is great, but it's a little hard to use. So give ICD a try. I think it will be a little better, easier front-end Google-like search. And these are all the FPDS slides, just screenshots, and then basically explanations for the different categories. What's on the left side of the screen? What's on the right side of the screen on the database? Because there's basically 3 screens, left, right, and the middle has all the content. And then it allows you to go down. You can see a list of task orders. And if you go in there and click on and print the list of task orders that AECOM has done, federal orders, it'll be like a million pages long. So the large businesses, when we actually, a lot of times when we're talking to our small businesses and somebody says, oh, I do federal work, I always clearly say as a prime or as a subcontractor. Because as a prime, I can just go look it up. I can't see how good you did, but I can see if you've done 5 task orders, it'll show 5 task orders there. Let me see. Yeah, that's probably it. So any questions on ICD or FPDS?
Ted, can you go back a couple slides to, yeah, that'll work. One more.
Keep going.
Yeah, one more. Yeah, this is the screen that you'll normally get, and all the lists on the side. So you type in a query here, and so if a company has a contract, all those contracts with the department name, who they have the contract with, and the agency are going to pop up, and you'll see the number of transactions. So I would encourage you, especially small businesses, to use this site to help look at your teaming partner to see, do they have game at the contracts that you're going after? So for instance, if you're saying, hey, let's go after this new Corps of Engineers contract that's coming out, and you're getting ready to team with somebody, you look them up in the system, you find out they have no records with that agency or that district or whatever it might be. Then you realize that the relationships that they have, they're probably not very deep, or they have no past performance experience with that. And that all builds into your, as you sit down and you figure out, are we going to be competitive for this contract or not? There's a lot of these tools here will give you that information. If you just go for it, look into it, you search it, and you try to mine it and understand, where are you and that teaming partner, especially if you have a choice between on 2 different teams, like, oh, which one, if I can only go with one, I have to be exclusive, which one do I go with? There's a lot that goes into it, And this is one of those tools that will provide, and some of those records you have to drill down into. You click the link and it says, oh, you have 10 records. And then you find out half of them have $0 assigned to them. Or they only have 4 task orders worth, $200K. That's not very good when it comes to evaluating whether that company's going to be really competitive for that contract or their past performance. It's just not there. So, do some digging deep, okay? And you'll discover a lot of stuff.
And most of you used it? Have you guys used this particular thing? No? Some have?
Yeah, now the challenge is, so I did this for the first 5 years when I came out of the military. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Then I got exposed to Centurion, and now I use GovWin. So there are paid subscriptions for those. We call that targeting intelligence. This right here, coming to this SAME conferences, that's where you gather human intelligence. The best you listen to program briefs. I see this IDC is coming out or this MATOC is coming out, and we expect that it'll come out. That's gathering human intelligence or human. We use things like GovWin, even FPDS and stuff like that to do targeting intelligence. Put them together. And just like Jim said, that helps you then formulate, if I know somebody's an incumbent and they had a shakeup on their team or something and there's some openings, I can find out, I do my research, know your client, and then know your ultimate client. What we use for GovWin with our small business teaming partners, we normally line them up ahead of time, so we kind of know who we're going to be talking to. We are authorized to share with our teaming partners those GovWin reports. So we do that a lot of times because that has great targeting intelligence on there. It'll show you the 4 incumbents. It takes all that FPDS crap that's in 100 pages and does a little pie chart and will show you exactly, hey, these are the contractors that have held the contracts. This is the number of task orders. Here's the winners. Here's the losers. And you take a look at a histogram and say, there's 5 contractors. 3 have been doing well. 2 have not been doing well. I'm going after one of those 2 weaker spots.
We had a question back there. He's writing now. But, did you have a question? You?
No, I was just raising my hand about using FPDS, but I would say too that sometimes joint ventures are put together, so the company name may be under the joint venture, not clear like the business partner name that you're getting from that person.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's a challenge with the JV. Even SAM can be very unforgiving if it's not spelled exactly right. So a lot of times we'll find them up in SAM and then get the DUNS number, then go into FPDS. And if you know it's a JV, go grab the 2 member partners, get their DUNS numbers, go into FPDS. Well, we go into GovWin and see that, but go into FPDS and you can see whether or not they'll hold those contracts. The DUNS number is like the magic search agent in a lot of these systems because it's kind of sensitive to it.
GovWin is it pricey or how?
We're a medium-sized firm, so it costs us $13,000 a year. Best $13,000 we spend for targeting intelligence because it takes what used to take me, if I was doing a capture plan on an IDC, it would take me hours to go look all this stuff up in FPDS and all that kind of stuff. I can go into GovWin and pull a report, share it with my potential teaming partners, and it's lickety-split. It is much more quicker.
But it's cheaper for small business, correct?
It's cheaper for small business, so it's based off your head count. So, in fact, I saw there's Deltek. Deltek has a stand down here. Deltek bought Centurion, which is, then they turned it into GovWin. So they've got a stand down there. If you're interested, they can give you price lists and stuff like that. There's a bunch of, I used Deltek Vision before. There's 20 million IMS, all the acronyms that are out there. We've settled on GovWin because for us it works. We tried it. We do public work too. We tried their state level version, not so good. Their federal GovWin system, top notch. DNBI's, Dun & Bradstreet Index. Much the same that we do due diligence as a prime that's going to be establishing a subcontractor relationship and doing work with small business teaming partners. We are going to check you out. I would offer you should do the same to the people that you're out looking and talking to. So we have a process where we can pull the Dun & Bradstreet index. We're just looking for concerns. General contractors, there's not green arrows up all the time. General contractors live life leaner. So there arrows, sometimes there's some yellows and stuff, but generally speaking, we're looking for anything on a Dun & Bradstreet that comes up red, like that person doesn't pay very well, particularly as a prime. For us, we're looking. For smalls, we want to make sure you're a viable company. In SAM, you don't have a purple exclusion. I've met 2 people in the past 12 years that gave me a business card and said, I want to do business with you. I looked them up in SAM, and they had a purple exclusion, so, which means they got in trouble. They did something wrong, and the federal government tagged them that they weren't authorized to get many more federal contracts. So D&BIs, again, it's the due diligence with that. Didn't happen very often, but it does happen. Okay, I'm going to pass the mic back to Jim to talk FBO.
Excuse me, I got a quick question.
Sir.
I was digging through some stuff in D&B, and they sent me a copy of my report. I had there are 4 or 5 areas, and all were great except for one. Is there a way of contesting that, or do you know anything about that?
No, sir.
No?
Yeah, we just, again, we're looking for overall trends. There's like an overall arrow, and then there's subcategories. So we're just, yeah, I have no idea.
Second question, Vector had groupings, the VA Vector contract that you bid for. And I bid as part of a team, and we didn't get one of the groups. So I started researching who were the group winners in a certain group. And there were only 6 companies that were the primes for this. And one of them, I started looking them up, and I found several cases of government fraud. How did they get awarded a contract vehicle like Vector when there's fraud cases easily available?
You mean out on open source? Like searchable on open source, not in SAM.
Yeah, just searchable, Google, and boom,
Yeah.
there's lawsuit after lawsuit.
Unless in SAM that there is an exclusion that a government agency has toggled that do not do business with, called an exclusion, they're open, and they may not, yeah.
So you could protest that, possibly.
I can neither confirm or deny that. Yes, sir. Jim.
Yeah, next slide we want to talk is FBO. And the thing that I hate, and you've all probably heard it probably 20 times already, when you go to talk to someone in the government, they'll tell you, oh, watch FBO for it to come out. And I hate that phrase because everyone here knows that if you're trying to go after a contract, you've got to position for it in advance. You need to team up with people in advance. If you're especially like us, we're in the architectural engineering sector, the scopes of work are like this. Okay? Even for a large business of 1,000 people, okay, there are certain things within that we don't do or can't do. You have to have team members to plug in all those gaps. So for the small businesses, even more difficult, so you rely on teaming. So try not to accept it's on FBO or keep watching FBO from your people, because it's not helping you whatsoever. That's a reactionary thing for the most part. There are some proactive opportunities that are out there, like for instance, sources market surveys, pre-solicitation notices, large complex solicitations. Sometimes the government will put a pre-solicitation to give you basically the 90% of the scope of work in advance, so you can start chipping away at it and teaming and stuff. But not all solicitations come out that way. Some of them you have to rely on the previous solicitation scope of work to figure out, what's the 90% solution going forward. You may have to search the archives of FBO to find, say, a scope of work from 4 years ago on a contract that you're interested in. Sometimes it's very difficult to find. That's where those paid services like GovWin, I can always find the old contract information from a paid service. Finding it, through FBO sometimes can be really difficult or just not exist. So it is limited in what it does. By law, though, every solicitation that comes out has to be posted on FBO, and many times it's posted, but by the time it's posted, you're reacting to it. and you don't want to be reacting. We call that chasing. Your chance of winning a contract that you're chasing is very, very slim. So try to stay away from, the verbiage, watch FBO. It just irritates me big time.
Does me too.
I mean, if you deal with it, you understand, it's frustrating. Fed Connect is another website that the government uses. Certain agencies like the EPA use Fed Connect a lot more and more. And they'll still post it to FBO, but it'll probably just one link. It'll say, the solicitation is now posted on Fed Connect. And if you go to Fed Connect, it's a little bit more robust system. And it'll have, they'll hang all the, say maybe a certain solicitation may have like 6 attachments or 7 attachments, the scope of work and the original solicitation and plans and specs and a whole bunch of stuff, and they'll post it out there. So you can't just use one system or the other. So subscribe to, get your passwords set up in Fed Connect, set up your watches, your alerts, and have them alerted and sent to you, so when something posts, you can see it and you go find it. But some Fed Connect you just have to use. That's where some agencies post their stuff.
So if anybody did any of the EPA remedial acquisition framework, the RAF stuff, all their stuff was in Fed Connect.
And this is not a government website, this is a private website.
I think it is. I think it's a private website, but some agencies are using it.
Yeah, it's .net.
Net, yeah.
Check.
But they're, again, they have to, by law, post to FBO, but you'll just say one sentence says,
Go see Fed Connect.
EPA posted the, remedial action framework solicitation, go to Fed Connect. So they check the block, but you gotta go to Fed Connect. Now it's free, it doesn't cost you anything as a user. So, log in, sign up, and take advantage of it for you. So, next one is ProjNet, and ProjNet is really an awesome site, and we use it primarily for when a contractor is awarded. Some solicitations that will go out, they'll have a bid key on the bottom. They'll say prospective bidders go to this. They'll give you a bid key and login information. So we'll say the Corps of Engineers or NAVFAC has posted to ProjNet and all their files and plans and specs. So it's really a secure site where you can, it's kind of like an FTP site in some ways, where you can post large files up there and then download them. It's really a cool system. And when you win a project, if it's a design project, it'll go on ProjNet, or Dr. Checks usually. And that's just a secure system it's really interesting because if you, all the plans and specs will be there. And so when you do a red line, everyone checks the plans and specs and you're resubmitting things. The design teams and the reviewers can all look at it, and it'll be a central location that everything's documented and annotated. So you can go back and look from beginning of the project to the very end, and you can track everything that happened on the design side for that project. RFIs, it's just a really cool system. And so if you're on the design side, you'll definitely be using it. But sometimes you'll see it referenced on the solicitation where you can go to a site because the files are really large that you have to go download and look at. So.
Same thing on that too, get your login and password, keep track of it. Some of these systems require, the passwords timeout, just like SAM now has that new, you click on SAM like you would normally go in and it makes you log into the new site. That new site is gonna be the mother of all systems that will sit on top of a lot of these systems that will come underneath. But you'll notice when you drill down on it, you go to SAM, it bumps you out to another login page, and then it takes you right back into SAM. They're starting to do the migration for that. So we're on the receive end. We're not systems folks for the government. We're just trying to keep up to make sure that we're tracking those things. So.
Yeah. And, all right, we got
Good.
20 minutes.
Yep.
Let's see. Yep, 20 minutes left.
All right. Getting on a team, 2 different things. Getting on a team, we'll have a lot of folks that will come up and say, hey, I see you have this Kansas City contract. We'd love to be a sub to you on your contract. And my response is always, I would love to be able to give you work, but I would tick off all the small business subs that are already on my team that I have a teaming agreement with and a subcontract who I have specifically promised, oh, I don't do archaeological and cultural, so I bring a sub that's a hub zone, maybe even a twofer or a threefer, that is a hub zone, a vet, and an 8A, or not an 8A, a woman-owned small business, and they're already promised to my team. So the same thing as far as trying to get on it, we write small business participation plans when you submit a proposal. That is basically, here's what I think I'm going to do. I go see what the district, the NAVFAC, whatever agency is, what their goals are. We just got a Philly contract or a Philly proposal that is, they were trying to push it to small business. It became too cumbersome for them. It went large business, and the restriction is 25% of the work will be given to small businesses. So that's hard when you do that. So you've got to come up with a plan. We essentially take what we have to report on. And I'll show that here in a minute. We take what we're going to report on. We find the categories. Hopefully somebody we've worked with already. If we're the incumbent, we're going to drag a team with us. Unless they've screwed up or they've left or gone out of business, we're going to bring the same team that the government likes, that our folks like to work with, and we're going to keep bringing them along. Things do change, but that small business participation plan is the time to get on teams. Like Jim said, don't do the whack-a-mole thing. If somebody calls you and say, hey, it just hit FedBizOps and I'm a week into my 4 weeks to get the proposal, that's when you say, hey, thank you very much, and hang up, because they're chasing it too. They're chasing their tail. So that small business participation plan really is the opportunity. When we put our teams together, the due diligence, we're looking at stuff 1, 2, 3 years out. We basically do our due diligence. We'll build our team. If I got a bunch of subs that have worked, if it's a recompete, I'm bringing them along. If not, we're out looking for our new teaming partners. Then small business subcontracting plan. You win the contract. Then you have to, as part of the negotiations process, you fill out a small business subcontracting plan. That formalizes your participation plan, and it better not change. If you tell them you're going to do certain percentages, you fill out that small business subcontracting plan, sign it, and it goes in with your contract documents. It is part of your contract documents. Your federal agency then takes that small business plan and goes into a system and marks, and we'll show this on CPARs. Your small business reporting is connected to CPARs. So if you have a small business subcontracting plan, it's self-reporting, but when you upload into that system, when you're getting your CPARs and there's a little check mark in the top of the box that says, was there a small business subcontracting plan? And yes is clicked. Are they meeting their goals? Your assessing official has an opportunity to say yes, no, or indifferent.
Also on that, you need to know know your rights. But as small businesses, the small business subcontracting plan, there are requirements, reporting requirements from the large business, the prime to the subs. So we're supposed to contact you every time we get a task order to let you know that a task order came out, we're going to go after it, and give you the opportunity to bid on it. Doesn't mean you'll get it, because you may have multiple team members that could do the same work. But so there are reporting requirements on there and communication requirements that we want to communicate to you. So I send out an email to our teams and say, hey guys, we had a task order. I even sent out a note saying we didn't get any task orders. I just talked to the contracting officer. There's nothing in the forecast this quarter. And I just use it as a dialogue, just to keep people informed on what's going on. And a lot of people won't do that. So make sure you understand where you stand on that small business subcontracting plan, and use that to go ping your prime and say, hey, any task orders? How come we didn't get contacted? And make sure. There's also, you have the right to talk to the contracting officer for that agency that you got the contract as a contract. So you can go in and talk to the contracting officer and say, you know what, we're not getting any work off this thing. Now, a little word of caution on that, but the point is, it's in there saying that you are allowed to do that. So just make sure you understand your roles and responsibilities and rights under that plan. And the caveat to that also is there is a requirement that small businesses, if you receive a contract over $750K for services or $1.5 million for construction, you can be required to do your own small business subcontracting plan. So if that gets invoked on your contract, you're not out of the woods just because you're small, you may have some work there to do yourself.
Yeah, and then, so like this small business reporting thing, you only go up there if you're a large business. Our small business administrator was out for like 2 or 3 weeks when I had to do a proposal. I learned this about 7 years ago because I had to go pull 2 small business reports on our previous contracts. It's really not that hard. You get registered in it. You have a contract, you upload the number, and then we have an administrator, somebody from finance that goes in. We report, you can do it different ways. We report when we pay our subs, when we pay their invoice. So that's how we report. That's the cleanest way to do it. You can also report when you do a subcontract with them, but you know, it's hard to keep after that. So we tend to report when we've actually paid the sub. We have those reports. Well, I've got 10 JVs that I manage, and 8 of them have contracts. I am not the managing JV partner on any of them, so I have to report to my managing JV partner on all these things. So I won't deal too much with this, but one of the products, and Jim, if you could pass out some of the ISRs. So an individual small business report. This is what we call the top line. These are the top line numbers. If, for example, Philadelphia District tells me you have to do 25% of what you subcontract, 25% of the gross of the contract to small businesses. That's my number. That 25% is what I got to put off here. Top line, small businesses, the whole community. That's what we call top line numbers. And I'll show you here. This is one. I'll tell you, this is Kansas City, fiscal year 15, HTRW IDC. I told them I was going to do 75% of what I subcontracted to small businesses. So again, I didn't say what my subcontract number was. I said I was going to do 75% that I give. So that was, oops. Boy, I jumped ahead there. So this right here was my goal. I said, and then with the cost of the contract that I have been given to that date, that should equal $3 million. Then I go in, I'm actually at 3.3 million, and I hit 86%. That's a good ISR. That I promised I was going to do 75, and I delivered 86.4. Large businesses, a lot of times certain contracts you can't get small business subs, but you will know that in advance when you put your team because you've hopefully tried to get small businesses. We sometimes have to bring large businesses, unique drillers or something, some niche service that there's only larges out there to do that. So just be careful if you ever say, I'm going to do 100% of my subcontracting to small businesses. Kind of hard to do.
Is there a percentage that you're required?
So there's goals. Every district, every agency has different goals. So like the Tamika Grays and the Cheryl Chandlers, just go look at their slide decks. When they say, these are my goals for the district, we generally try to go toward their goals. So for example, on here, you can say percentages. I don't have to commit. It's a 5-year, $5 million contract. I don't know if I'm going to get 1 million or 5 million. So when you do your small business plan, just say, I'm going to try to shoot for 50% of what I subcontract to subcontractors. I am going to make a commitment to those small businesses. That's why it's important. Pick your team members, do the math up front, so when you tell these numbers, you're not changing them. Because this is actually, this comes off your small business subcontracting plan. And then, so this is above the line. This is what they pay attention with. And there's core folks in the room. So the bottom line is you will only get credit when you award small businesses as primes. That's the big numbers that you're looking at. If you don't make some of your above the line numbers, you can go down and take a look at your subcontracting numbers. So a lot of times that can lessen the pain of not meeting a hub zone goal as to awards to prime contractors. If I've given, because they can go in the system and figure this out, I've given $5 million to hub zones in subcontract dollars. So this is kind of a little bit of a balance. I won't go through this. Jim's passed a couple of those out. This ISR, individual subcontracting report, is hanging up on the portal. But you can see your numbers right here. Our goal was 17. We're at 47.8. Our goal was 18. We're at 30. I'll stop. The general trend, and actually Jim did a lot of this, we found small businesses that were twofers or threefers. those are good, because every dollar I give them, I get to count twice or 3 times in those categories. It's not gaming, but that's why if you ever see the numbers in a small business plan, you're like, these numbers don't add up to 100%. They never will. They'll tell you these numbers right here are of the 75% of what I'm going to give to small businesses. These are my categories. If you take these percentages, subtract them from that top line, that's basically the rest for regular small businesses, or what we call just straight-legged small business. And that's how those numbers work. It's all self-reporting every 6 months. They pull reports. If you've got multiple contracts, those are individual small business reports. If you have multiple contracts with an agency, there's an agency report that folks can do. And all this stuff ties back to CPARs. Okay, any questions on that small business stuff? All right. Ma'am. Say again? Yes, okay. So you can't get on this site because this is a proprietary registration. So the prime has to report on this. So if you're having a conversation with the prime and they're an incumbent and they've got this contract, the conversation from a small business is, hey, you know, I see you have this contract. I'm wondering if you could share how you've been doing on your individual small business report. Because that basically is the proof. And again, it depends on your relationship. This is all relationship driven, much the same as when we're going to talk about CPARs. The prime who holds the contract owns that CPARs record. They do not have to share that with you, much the same as this. This is relationship driven. If you've got a good relationship, they'll share it with you. I openly share it because these are pretty good reports. All of mine aren't good. My GSA is horrible. I don't meet a lot of my goals. But the ones that kind of matter, my core contracts where I make most of my money. So Arthur Salisbury never yells at me. He loves when I sit down with him because I'm helping his numbers on this. You quadruple, triple, and double those numbers. Again, it lessens the pain if he's not hitting prime contracts to small businesses by category. This helps lessen the pain a little bit. And because they roll the numbers up and say, but I've given $7 million to small businesses through our subcontracting plan. Bigs didn't used to pay attention to this. Probably 5-6 years ago, we started paying a lot more attention to this because now the proof is coming into the RFPs. They want to see your proof, just like I did a project where I got a resume. Really, you play well with others. Give us an ISR, give us an individual small business report for 3 contracts from the Corps. Those have been requirements now.
I just want to make sure everybody heard your question because it was a little hard to hear.
Her question was, if you're a small business, kind of why do I care about this report?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so again, you can't get on the site, but it's a conversation piece to have with your large business teaming partner. Okay, CPARs.
7 minutes.
What's that? Yep, we're going to roll. So on CPARs, there's a couple hard copies there. This right here is the section. This is kind of funny. So Alpine Survey, here's AECOM and OBG. There's our DUNS number. There's what we did. That's a Philadelphia contract. And we went in and basically, we were a sub to Advanced Geoservices Company, AGC. They hold the prime contract. We did a fair amount of subcontracting, and we got our name on that. I could never get that CPARS if I didn't have a great relationship with Barb Forsland, who, when she got that, and I told her how to respond to it, she goes, this is great. We got an exceptional CPARS rating and this and that. The time to do this, when they get the task order awarded, because subs will know you're going to get a subcontract on that particular task order. That is the time for the prime contractor as the contractor representative to ask their core or their agency project manager, hey, here's my DUNS number and here's what I'm doing on this contract. Can I get my name on that CPARS record? Okay, what happens if something bad goes and all this kind of stuff? You got to be careful. You need to get it on ahead of time. When the assessing official goes into CPARS and does an interim report, it's not locked out. If they're closing it out and do a final report, You cannot add anything. They'll pass by that screen. So let's just assume you're going to do well on all the task orders and your prime will do well. The time to get your name on it is up front and early on. Kansas City, I can hardly get anybody listed. Philadelphia, a little. Every district is totally different. And the rule, basically, I think it's not dollar amounts, but it's a significant amount of effort. They don't consider like a specialty driller or something. Kansas City doesn't. They don't consider a specialty driller worthy of getting up there. Philadelphia, a small was able to get another small business and 2 large business on a sub. So I bring that up just because that changed back 3 years ago when CPARs merged, but a lot of districts haven't really grabbed a hold of it.
Yeah, and the real key is you want to establish your own record of performance, past performance in the federal government. And it's until you prime a contract and get this CPARs in your own name, this is a way to help chip away at that and have records. So when they query the system, your name will come up as tied to this CPARs rating, and that's really important. So it's the next best thing to have in your own as a prime, is get on there. And you might want to include it as a line of your subcontract. You know, throw a line in there as well. I want to be on the CPARs.
We'd like to get a copy of the CPARs. And again, the prime doesn't have to give it to you. That's a relationship. If you want to force it, you can force it in the subcontract. Peepers, basically, this is the source selection and evaluation boards. This is the system that they're going in. For folks that do JVs, joint ventures, like I said, I'm not the managing JV partner of any of my JVs, so I actually have to go in and get permission from HDR, AECOM, Kokosing Construction, whomever it is. I actually have to get permission from the person that owns that JV's DUNS number so that I can add it. My Peepers account, I've got like 15 DUNS numbers that I track, a bunch of my own and a bunch of JVs. In CPARs, and large businesses have this all down, but for me, being able to track that has been absolutely huge because if you get an interim report and it's less than satisfactory and it goes to a final, that unsatisfactory or marginal reporting stays in the system for 6 years. And if you're a small business with one DUNS number and you put in for a contract, they go in Peepers and look up, search by your DUNS number, that report will come up for 6 years. So manage your CPARs way, way, way ahead of time. Don't let them get away from you. Don't let the federal government also blow off doing an annual. Every year, at a minimum, they've got to do an annual. Interim. All right. So I'm going to stop there. But wait, there's more. I've got a dealie on transfers of authority, but we'll skip that. So backtrack. We hopefully have given you an overview of what we consider the 12 primary federal systems, a primer on that, a little bit of a deeper dive on CPARs, ICD, and the small business reporting system. And there's our thanks to our sponsors. And those are the systems. Again, if you want the PowerPoint slide deck, just throw a card up here and I'll email you that because we're not allowed to post that to the SBA site. It's got to be PDF or something like that. But I'll give you that. Question, sir?
Could you?
I'm sorry. Can you go to the mic because they're recording?
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm relatively new to the space, and I was also told to go to FedBizOp website to look for contracts. And if that's not where you go, where should I?
Well, no, that wasn't his point. His point is if you wait till the target, like if it's a whack-a-mole on FedBizOps, you and a whole bunch of other people are seeing it. So Jim's point is if you want to target a recurring contract or something like that, the best way to do that is come to these conferences, find out when the IDC expires, back it up a year and a half or so, and that's whenever there could be something out. So
if
that
it's a new contract, I can still go to the FedBizOps?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's just you become reactionary if you wait to get on a team until it hits FedBizOps. That whole small business participation plan, we put teams together. Even if we're not an incumbent, I'm going to know who the weak links are. And if I got 2 spots, I'm going after one of them. I've done my SWOT analysis. I have my team built 6 months to a year before that. Not for projects, that's different. For recurring MATOCs and IDCs, big 5-year, multi-million-dollar contracts, bigs do that stuff years in advance and lock your teams up. Ma'am, Peggy. Good, ma'am. Oh, sorry, they're recording, so. They made us use a microphone, too.
For businesses that can't afford the government, which is pretty expensive, what do you recommend as a search engine for the everyday small business trying to get into government contracting because Fed is kind of not past tense, but reacting.
My first used to be FPDS because I can go in there and find the contracts. I see when the start date is, I find out when the end date is, and that helps me. The ICD is intended to give you that. Again, it's for federal agencies to be able to go use other contracts. You can dig down and see when the contract starts, when it ends, and then you can actually go into FPDS the hard way and look how many task orders have they got. If I know, or you come, like Kansas City has a list of all the primes and all the subs underneath that, and they list the contract numbers. I can just go into to FedBiz, or I can go into Federal Procurement Database, search on that contract, it'll come up and it'll tell me they've had 10 task orders, 5 task orders, or whatever. It gives you that information. The ICD is hopefully a little bit more searchable for that. It's meant to make it easier.
All right.
Tim and I will hang around for questions if you'd like.
Yeah, I was going to
but
say,
we
if
have
you've
to-
got individual questions, they're going to be up here for a while still, and you can talk to them. Thanks for attending today. Don't forget to leave your card so you can get the slides, and I think it was a good presentation with a lot of information.